The penultimate stage of the Santos Tour Down Under, stage number 5, got away from Snapper Point heading for Willunga, 148 kilometres. The world champion Cadel Evans poised in 7th place, the overall lead still resting on the shoulders of the German Andre Greipel.
Everybody knows that this day is the day that they were looking for to see whether there's going to be any change at the top end of the overall classification, as the last minute preparations were made for what everybody expects to be the decisive day.
2 climbs of the old Willunga Hill, the steepest climb on the course over 6 days. Lance Armstrong signing in here, making ready for his Radio Shack team. Lance is definitely back. He tried an attack yesterday and it didn't work, but we were well aware he was in the race.
129 riders left in the race there, starting up the front line there in the ochre jersey of leadership, Andre Greipel. The question, Phil, on everybody's mind at the start of today's stage was, can this man, renowned as a sprinter, get his body over the Willunga Hill?
Greipel knows that if he gets through this day in the ochre jersey, then he should be plain sailing on the final stage around the city of Adelaide. Through the vineyards of the McLaren Vale, a very fast start indeed soon produced 7 riders in the lead. And in this front group, the fancied Australian Matthew Wilson.
Yes, but this 7-man breakaway was never really given very much freedom. In fact, they only just tickled the 2-minute advantage. When they came down to the Snapper Point sprint point, there was a massive charge for the line because these 2 riders were the first 2 riders in the overall standings in the breakaway. On this occasion, the 3-second time bonus going to the Russian rider Dmitriev from Astana.
He got in there ahead of Eduard Voganov. Both riders improving their overall situation. The gap there, just over 1 3/4 minutes on the main field, as they went out on their second 40-kilometre lap, taking in the same sprint point. The views down by Aldinga, simply amazing. This was sensational South Australia, and the field were turning out in style.
Coming up to 1 minute and 55 seconds for the leading group of 7 riders, but most of the work in the main field was being done by the teammates of the overall leader, Andre Greipel, Team HTC Columbia. They kept everything in check. But Lance Armstrong was sporting the face of a master day, and he was waiting to get himself up to Willunga Hill to see if he could rival Cadel Evans, the current world champion.
The riders now still planning their second circuit before tackling the long climb of the old Willunga Hill. And the big names of this race, like a Tour of Spain winner Alejandro Valverde, were all waiting for that big moment. Down into Willunga for the second time, the feeding bags were out and the riders snatching their food on the run. They were now getting ready for the big showdown. One man trying to reach the leaders with a great attack was Thomas Royregger, the Skoda king of the mountains. But although he got them and thought he'd won the climb, Valery Dmitriev, who was in the leading group, shot back, a resurgence of energy to take the points at the top. But the peloton were closing in.
They certainly were closing in. In fact, Rohregger, the rider from Austria on the German team Milram, had bridged a gap of almost 2 minutes on the climb, but the main field were hovering at around 30 seconds in arrears. And at the top of the first ascent of Willunga Hill, Andre Greipel did not look as if he was in any stress at all.
No, a big tick for Greipel after the first climb, but it had to be done once more, and now Cadel Evans was in much more serious mood. Here he was trying to get clear with Wesley Sulzberger. And now was his big moment. It was all or nothing on this last major mountain of this year's Santos Tour Down Under. And Evans was in no mood to take anybody with him.
His 3rd place a couple of days ago on the stage into Stirling was an indication that he already had some very good early season form. But the way he rode in front of a massive crowd here was an indication that he wasn't just trying to show his World Champions jersey off to the crowd. He was actually trying to win this race.
Evans was now trying to improve in his overall position. He was only seconds behind the overall leader, Andre Greipel, and he'd been joined now by 2 big danger men in black. Alessandro Valverde in 2nd place and Jose Luis Sanchez, the man who's won this race in the past. The other rider was a 19-year-old Slovakian rider, Peter Sagan.
Looking down towards the 10-kilometre to go banner, they were hovering at about 36 seconds ahead of a small group containing the overall leader, Andre Greipel, who rallied the troops and pulled all of his men back together. A lot of work done by Matthew Goss and of course by Mickey Rogers to try and pull the leading group of 4 back in the fold, but inside of the last 2 kilometres, a last burst by Luis Leon Sanchez gave him a slight advantage over the rest of the group.
So the attacks now are all being thrown at Greipel. It wasn't just to get rid of Greipel, it was to try and win the overall race lead. That wasn't to be. Luis Leon Sanchez held them all off, and it was Luke Roberts making a run from the peloton to snatch 2nd place, Valverde 3rd and Cadel Evans 4th. Well, with 3 kilometres to go, it was going to be either Sanchez or Cadel Evans in the ochre jersey. but the big chase back by Andre Greipel and his HTC Columbia team saved the day for him to keep the yellow. But there was still plenty to celebrate for Luis Leon Sanchez.
This was the work of a team today, and obviously the Australian team manager Neil Stevens wanted his guys to do the best that they could, and coming away with a victory on a day like this is not a bad start.
One day to go, and it's still Greipel in the ochre jersey.
Well, Cadell, I have to say that was very much like a replay of Mendrissi. I think all of the crowd here are Australian. They were all on the edge of their seats.
Oh, good for them. So was I. Quite literally. No, it was it put us in an interesting situation on the climb. But of course, when you have two Cas de Pan, one's a very fast finisher and one's a strong finisher, it's put me in a bit of a difficult situation. The last thing I wanted to do was lead Sanchez out for the stage because he's breathing down my neck on GC, but so was the entire peloton, so I thought, you know, better to play for something than lose everything.
Yes, it was indeed a world champion performance by Cadel Evans, while Andre Greipel now knows there's only one day to go to protect an 11-second lead.
But what about a moment of panic? When you see the names of the riders in the breakaway, Valverde, Sanchez and Cadel Evans, world champion, was there a moment when you started to panic?
There was no point to panic, or we had no time to panic, because we just needed to chase. It was 40 seconds, we were 40 seconds behind at the climb, and Mick Rogers, Hayden Ralston and Matthew Goss just started to chase them, and just awesome.